Now we got James Williams. James Williams, the kid out of University of Miami. This guy is an absolute unit, man. These stats: 6'4", 231, 4.6540. You immediately go, oh, that's Cam Chancellor. I mean, and when you see him on tape, you're just going, oh my good God, he's huge. He's bigger than their linebackers. I mean, he's more imposing, I should say, than their linebackers. Notes: big body, enforcer at the box safety position. Miami does play him high as well. It doesn't feel like coverage is his strong suit, quite frankly. Not incredibly fast or explosive after watching the other two guys. So there's all kind of relative value here. He does have 30 pounds on these other two dudes, or 25 pounds. He can cover tight ends in man. He can definitely fill that enforcer role if you want to play a single safety high defense with a guy near the line of scrimmage a lot. You need a great safety coach to develop this guy as well. He stands out on film because of his size. He does get caught looking too often on tape. He gets caught looking in the backfield. He gets not confused, but he's slow to play some of the route combinations, not as fast as you want to see it as far as play speed and kind of recognition. But again, I always think with a lot of that stuff, it comes down to like how well were you coached earlier in your career, talking about high school, talking about college. I think the guys that are top level a lot of times have top level development. I don't know that all of these guys, that's the case for everyone. I don't know anything about the Miami structure, but he is put all over the field. He does make plays. I say he's a tackler and a physical presence, like this is one of those guys where everybody starts knowing him because of the licks he puts on other people. All right. You just have to be able to deal with that and make open field plays against, the Percy Harvins of the world, the Bijan Robinsons of the world. You got to be able to bring that guy down, not only in the pocket, but also outside in the alley. So let's take a look at this guy. Had him playing against Drake May here in North Carolina QB just because it was fun. You see the vision here. He's going to try to jump this route. Stand a little bit flat-footed. Hunt and hammer. You talk about putting a guy in the box, single safety high, putting him in the box and just going, hey, man, it's time to eat. I mean, he just dump trucks this dude, right? That's a college running back playing for a high-level team, and he just looked like a highlight tape, like I remember when Andy Katzenmoyer was coming out from Ohio State, went to the Patriots. There was this picture, man. They kept showing he was tackling dudes, and they were likening it to a deer hitting a train or a train hitting a deer. And that's how this guy looks when he hits people sometimes, man. It's like a train hitting a deer. So we just think about business decisions here from other guys. You want to have guys on the field that other people don't want to mess with. So number 9 tries to test him a little bit, and it's boom, punch, pushes him over the pile, right? These are the kind of guys you like to have on the field. They just have to come with the other qualities as well. I think he can match tight ends. You think you can put him in the slot. They're comfortable doing it. They put him in man coverage a lot. All these little out routes. Like the thing is, he plays off enough in this situation where the guy's probably going to make the play, but he's probably going to get the guy down as well. So maybe we tighten up his coverage. You put somebody behind him. He's certainly not going to play against a really true slot receiver, but you put a tight end in the slot, you got to feel comfortable that from a size standpoint, he can probably get up and muscle him a little bit. He does need to play a little bit better with his hands. We'll show that a little bit later. But you make this, they don't make this throw, but you see like he's in a position to make plays. The transition speed's not more than he can handle. So they got 4 shell across. They go out and up. Okay. We get caught peeking a little bit here in the backfield. We just saw this from the last from Mustafa. You get peeking, and you see here, dude, he's just in the wrong ballpark because he got caught watching the quarterback on the pump. In 22, unfortunately doesn't have a double there where he could definitely have a double. Those kind of things. There's just a little bit of confusion, I think, a little too often on tape watching this guy. And then the last thing here we saw is the tight end kind of takes a double block look here. And in this situation, you're 6'4", 230 some odd pounds. You got to put 2 hands on this guy and really think about your block protection, right? This is unacceptable. You got to separate and be able to make a play here in the hole. It just can't happen. You didn't do a good job of getting your hands extended. You didn't step 2. You're not being able to step into this tackle. You're going to try to arm tackle and reach. Like, These are the things when you're talking about what do high level guys do? Man, they're first to contact. High level guys are first to contact. They're violent with their hands. They know how to punch and separate. They can win with their feet. These are the things that a lot of college athletes now, coaches will say things like, coaches will say things like, we don't have time for it. Coaches will say things like, the scheme takes care of everything. And really, you start watching these games, like, that's not that play wasn't a problem if you're violent with your hands. And that play was called back on a holding call from somebody else. But that play is not a problem if you're not violent. You make a tackle for loss, you make a tackle at the line of scrimmage. If you're better with your eye discipline, if you understand their route combinations for when they're lining up, like if you spent more time on that, you probably don't get, got peeking in the back in the secondary, especially when you got the guy over the top in that particular look in the cover four when he gets beat deep. Like there's no scenario where he's jumping the hook or the quick out. Like it's not how the defense is run. So, for me, when I look at these three guys, and there's some other guys out there, obviously I think the top guy that everybody's talking about is either Javon Bullard from Georgia, 198 pounds, weighing a 4.47, or Tyler Nubin from Minnesota, 6'1", 199, runs a 4.6. Listen, these guys are all probably good. There's a kid from Washington State, 211 pounds, runs a 4.6, Jaden Hicks, right? He's probably a guy you could take a harder look at as well. Really good angles to the ball carrier. For me, we're kind of talking what's best case scenario. And best case scenario is like you have the guys that are fitting whatever that criteria is for you. And I think for me, it's either I think you want the fastest guy possible as long as he can tackle. And obviously when you think about Darnell Savage being, sub 200 pounds, and feeling that might be a kind of an issue in today's NFL now with the guy that needs to play closer to the line of scrimmage. You want to get a little bit bigger body. It's got some meat on him, and can certainly at least take on, the crack blocks from wide receivers and take on some of those tight ends. And then you start thinking, well, if I got a guy with any range that's just a big, like an extra linebacker, you think about how the NFL is evolving back to 21 personnel, 22 personnel, 12 personnel, 13 personnel, where you've got slightly larger humans and fullbacks and tight ends into the game more, and understanding that they're the guys that oftentimes are going to be leading on these safeties. And if they are leading on these safeties and they don't have kind of that bigger box safety type, you've got yourself a real issue. Because if I'm running down at 240 at a guy who's 195 pounds, he's going to lose every single time we try to go into confrontation, which means my running back is going to look really good. So I think we might be going back to the time. If you look at the NFC now, you look at Detroit, you look at obviously San Francisco, you look at Philly, and they're going to run with some of these bigger body guys leading up. Particularly San Francisco, who's at the king of the hill right now. They got, Juszczyk and George Kittle are redefining those positions again in the National Football League, and what they're able to bring to the table from their motion slips, their outside blocks, their leads, the things they can do, and the way that they eat up some of these safety types, or when you have to double off to a corner, like you need a bigger guy in there that can combat that and take away a portion of their offense. I don't know if you can do that with a guy that's sub 200. You can do a lot with a guy that's sub 200, but for my money, you want to get as close to the best of both worlds as you can. And quite frankly, I think in time, both Cole Bishop and Malik Mustafa could be that guy. But I think right now you get Cole Bishop and you feel pretty good about yourself. I mean, you just got a hell of a good football player, and that just moves effortlessly, just moves effortlessly and just looks, he's 205, 206, but he looks like a big dude on the field against the other college football players. Now, the other part of this equation, obviously, free agents available that have great resumes in this league. Okay. I love Quandre Diggs. I didn't know Quandre was as old as he was. He just got released by Seattle, him and Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams is actually always an interesting thing because he came into New York with the Jets. Right scheme, right guy, right coaching, right system, and was just awesome his first year. Just a unit, right? Just use him around the line of scrimmage. Not a lot of coverage responsibilities. Put him in the pocket, put him in the hole. He loves violence. He's really, really good at it. Then guys started forcing him into coverage, and you realize, man, he's got a real blind spot. His coverage is not what it needs to be at all. put him out in space. He's not that great of a tackler against shifty guys because he's always trying to, it's athleticism versus technique. But I love Quandre Diggs. Quandre Diggs is available. I think he's even going to be better next year. I know he's getting 30 years old, but you look at him, he got hurt, came back last year. He played high level. They release him. I think that's a value, right? Especially for a kind of mentor in that room. You got, I think Hyde and Poyer are leaving Buffalo. So those guys are obviously north side of 30. Great players. How much is that going to cost? Simmons leaving the Broncos. Great player. How much is that going to cost? All of these guys come in immediately, have a major impact on the team. Again, for me, Diggs is kind of the top guy. I think I have some other numbers up. There's some other guys in here. And the problem is they're all, Buda Baker. God, I had Buda in Bellevue High School in 2009, right? Where you're just going, he's a freshman. And I remember 2 years later, my buddy Matt Hayes calls me and goes, this kid Buda, he's undersized. He's the best football player I've ever seen, right? And he certainly proved that. And they had some dudes on that team now. Dave DeCastro was on that team. Miles Jack was on that team. Like, they had some dudes. But Buda is just special. 28 years old, ups and downs. Incredible career so far. And he's a club option, so I don't know if he's going to be there. But man, if he was there, just write a check and take care of that position for 3 years. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's going to be out of Philly. Excuse me, out of Detroit. What am I talking about? Only 26 years old. So he's not, for me, he's not Justin Simmons. He's not Buda. He's not Quandre, not Micah, not Poyer, but he's a good player. He talks it. He tries to back it up, right? He's violent. He gives you what you want. So there's some guys out there that you could build through. If you can get a really quality guy and then you turn around and you go, now I feel really good about drafting like Mustafa, or I feel really good about drafting Williams. And I know that I'm going to put him in the game, but he's going to have a veteran mentor who's just high level football IQ and how to do things with intimate knowledge and detail. And he has time. He doesn't have to be the dude. We can put him in situations to be successful, a la Jamal Adams' first year with New York. We can put him near the line of scrimmage. We can give him lanes. So with Quay Walker, we was talking about, what was the difference between like Quay's good games and Quay's bad games, right? The more direct route he has to like structure frees you. So the more structure you put in where he needed to go, lane discipline, dogs and blitzes, pressure looks, run fits. The more direct he is, the better he plays, right? Because you start going on autopilot and you use all the skill that you have, all the talent you have, but also everything you've learned. You go on autopilot because you don't have to think about that read as much, right? Initial read. You can do that when you have the guy in the back end that can cover for you. So having a veteran, I think, would be a huge windfall for the Green Bay Packers. You got to spend the money to get a good one. It looks like the good ones, if I go back to that number, it looks like the good ones are going to cost you somewhere between, let's call it 6.5. Now let's call it, just to be safe, let's call it $8 million to $14 million, something around there for those guys. Maybe a little bit closer to, 10, something like that, just because they're all kind of north of 30 right now, except for the three really, Jamal, Buda, and Gardner-Johnson. So I really liked Cole Bishop. I thought I just think he is unique in a movement standpoint. He seems to be a real heady football player. I was a big fan of watching him. I do have some listener questions. I just got a couple this week. Thanks for everybody who sends this stuff in. Unfortunately, I made a comment about the real world being the end of civilization, and I got a lot more information about that than anything else. Ever consider going to the front office, Mike? Player procurement route? Thank you. It says I seem good at it. I don't know. Understanding how people move, I think, is really important to understanding whether or not what a guy's ceiling is. And I don't think they spend a lot of time with that. If you look at the criteria for a lot of coaching staffs or a lot of personnel guys, they have some criteria that when I watch it, I go, well, it doesn't really tell me anything I don't know already, right? So you're always kind of going into the lane that you understand. So if you don't understand human movement, And just so that kind of that looks good. You just basically want to start from the feet up, very simply, and say, does this look elite or not? But I think if you can tie in, which I try to do when I look at these things, you try to tie in, how technically sound are they? Eye discipline, lane discipline. How does it look like they're playing fast in the structure of their offense or defense? I think basically when you start looking at the stuff outside the physical, which a lot of people can get, even though they can't necessarily get some of the details in specific movement, I think it tells you so much more about a player. So if a player is like a technical master, I come out of college, like that tells me he's good technically. What else does that tell me though? That is going to help me for determining whether or not he's a good fit for my team. Well, I know he's professional. I know he has great attention to detail. I know he has a high level of resiliency. I know that he's curious. I know these a tape watch. Like I know all these things already. I might not know that about another guy who's a great athlete, but I know it about the technical guy. And so it's easy for me to just take some things on assumption now. And I know he's receptive to good coaching. And I know he probably holds a high standard for himself. So those things already give me a leg up on everybody else just because I'm looking at the right thing. Right? I'm looking at the details of how this person moves, how he interacts, how his technique works, how his skill level is. And once you kind of start figuring out and looking at it from that standpoint, I think nothing's easy because there's so much of personality and motivation that you have to learn and dig deep and see, hey, is this gonna be a personality conflict? What is that going to look like? Is the juice worth the squeeze kind of thing? But I do think there is something to the process of which we go. Some teams are going through that now. Maybe isn't as like efficient as it should be because they've been doing the same thing for so long. And all they're doing now, just so everybody knows, is like when you throw in the S2 or you throw in like the relative athletic score, like all of that stuff's great, but it's just a glance. Like it doesn't get down to like you're not changing the fundamental of how you look at things. Like, are you looking at their process? Or are you just like trying to see if they're a good athlete? Like you have a box that ticks for like aggressive behavior, or you actually try to figure out like from a process standpoint, are they doing things the right way? Or are they just a really good athlete? Or are they just in a really good scheme? Like how they do things really, really matters. And I don't know that a lot of people do that still. This is interesting. I'd be curious to see how much you would have to eat and the kind of workouts you would do, not only to keep the muscle and fat, thanks a lot, but also be able to play a full game. So good question. Here's a short answer: 7,000 calories a day when I was playing. Start off the day with 2 pounds of ground beef and some hot sauce. So a lot of it was protein. As much lean protein as I can eat. So as much lean protein as I can eat, and then the next most important thing is carbs. I always thought about fats as let's not have like dairy fats. Let's not add, we can have like nut fats like almonds, peanut butter, etc. Those are really good saturated, unsaturated fats for you. But excuse me, but you're going to get most of the fats you need out of animal fat, right? And then you can, obviously you eat a ton of fish, all that. You get all your fish oils. You can have that omega-3/6 ratio. You can make sure that you're good with, and you do some blood work to figure that out. But really, the rest of it is going to be like, if you need to maintain or gain weight, the hard part is the carbohydrate is it fills you. It makes you look fuller. It's not going to help you cut if you're trying to look good. But what I found one year that I restricted carbs more than I should have, I was down in Carolina. I couldn't hold water weight during a hot day. Like I was getting IV twice a day during training camp down there. One, because it's ridiculously hot and humid down in Wofford. But two, because quite frankly, I was too lean. At that point, I was like 15% body fat as offensive lineman. And like, it was just really tough for me to keep weight on. I was losing over 10 pounds every practice. I didn't have enough cell volumization through the carbohydrate meal. I was always like too dried out. So that is a problem. But yeah, it was a real stretch. And then workouts, I just always make the comment to my training partner, my best friend. Man, it's like, man, if we would have had social media back when we were doing what we were doing, because we were doing a lot of, we strongman lifting. We were with Mark Philippi, world's strongest man competitor. Like in the off seasons, we were lifting with him all the time. We set up obstacle courses on Wednesdays that like, you just look at them now, like, what are these guys doing? Just nutso stuff. We used to do the wrist rollers until the calluses would tear off our wrists and to start the off season. or not our wrists, our hands. A lot of heavy lifting, a lot of work, 2 sessions a day. We would go for 3 hours in the morning and just, when you find that if you have a partner that you just pushes you, I got pushed myself hard, but if you find that dude who's like you're equal in like nuts craziness and just desire and intensity, and I found that guy in Ryan Claridge, call him Coach. He just pushed me every single day. There wasn't a day where you could take off, and we would get another guy there, and we would go do stuff like they had the 250-pound kegs that you had to clean and press the kegs. And the deal was with Mark Philippi would back when we were training at UNLV, would be like, hey, if I got a guy who's an NFL prospect, I want him to be able to come train with you. That was like the price we paid for being able to train there. And we're like, no problem. Ryan was one of those guys. That's how we became friends. But initially, I would go out and I'd take the keg, and I would just start doing keg presses at the end of the first workout until he quit. Because it was like, I got to test you. And 3, 4, 5 guys quit the first day. We'd do something else. Maybe we do a farmer's or something, but it would be like they wouldn't show up the next day. It was too much. And Ryan didn't quit, and we're best friends. So that's how that works. They might have one more here that's kind of off topic, but not off topic. Oh, how far do you want to go to stretch for a safety? And I think the true answer now is, if Goody's willing to pay a guy, these 30-year-olds, man, as just somebody in that room, and Adrian Amos again, a leader. If you can get that guy and it doesn't break the bank, I think that's worth a couple draft picks this year. Because I think the veteran leadership, I think the experience and the knowledge. Listen, if your secondary room isn't performing like you want them to perform, it's not only the players, it's also what or how they're being coached. And I'm not going to sit here and attribute that to we have a new secondary coach. I'm not going to attribute that to the last secondary coach, because Joe Barry is ultimately responsible for that. But if the guys aren't performing, what's obvious in the National Football League is players, like, I learned more from Frank Winters and Jeff Dellenbach than I ever did Tom Lovat. And Tom Lovat was a good coach in the National Football League. But like, you learn from the guys that are older doing it, give you these little like, hey, make sure you're doing this. Think about this. I saw this rep do this, put your foot, that stuff from a player resonates because they're out there doing it. They're giving you some intimate details. Like, it's almost like they're telling you a secret that nobody else knows. So that stuff helps, I think, develop younger guys. If Stokes stays around, some of these other guys are 24, 25 years old. Like, it helps develop those guys at a level that you could bring a really, really good secondary coach in. And I just don't think I think the supplement of having that veteran guy in there, high level player, Pro Bowl, all pro caliber player, you can't put a price tag on that, man. It's so important for this team, because this team is, let's be honest. If they keep developing, they're really close. Like, they're really, really close to being exceptional. Now, they're going to have to fight in their division, obviously, with the Detroit Lions, but I think they're really close to being exceptional. So that's it for this week, guys. Thanks again for watching. Thanks to our sponsor at Bet Online. And I will be back next week. I'm not sure with what yet, what position. Give me some ideas on YouTube or Mike Wall 68 on X. Smash it, like it, subscribe it. Thanks for watching, guys.